My name is Dr. Lee, and for 18 years, the rhythm of Seoul's hospitals has been the pulse of my life. I'm 38 now, a surgeon specializing in the intricate dance of the human nervous system. My days are long, often stretching past midnight, filled with the sterile scent of operating theaters and the hushed urgency of family waiting rooms. I carry the weight of impossible decisions, the quiet triumphs, and the heavy defeats that are part of this calling. I've seen lives hang by a thread, and I've learned that sometimes the sharpest blade isn't enough to mend what's truly broken. My dream, when I was a young medical student, was simple: to fix people, to make them whole again. I poured every ounce of my being into learning, into honing my skills, believing that precision and knowledge were the ultimate answers. But as the years passed, I began to understand that healing went far beyond stitches and scalpels. One crisp autumn evening, a patient named Min-joon arrived in my emergency room. He was a vibrant 24-year-old, a talented classical guitarist with a scholarship to a prestigious music school in Europe, just weeks away from his flight. A reckless driver, a slick patch of road, and Min-joon's world was irrevocably shattered. The diagnosis was devastating: a severe spinal cord injury. We performed the surgery, a marathon 8-hour procedure that tested every fiber of my being. We stabilized him, we removed the bone fragments, we did everything medically possible. But the damage was done. Min-joon would never walk again, and more painfully for him, the intricate dexterity in his fingers, essential for his music, was severely compromised. He lay in his hospital bed, his body healing, but his spirit was like a withered flower. I saw the darkness in his eyes, a profound despair that medicine couldn't touch. My internal nemesis, the doubt that sometimes crept into my thoughts, whispered, "What good is mending a body if the soul inside has given up?" I tried to fight it, to focus on the next steps, the rehabilitation, but Min-joon's silent agony was a constant, gnawing presence. In the weeks that followed, Min-joon retreated into himself. His family, brave and heartbroken, visited daily, their hopeful words met with his blank stare. Physical therapists tried to engage him, but he barely responded. He refused to eat most of his meals, his once bright eyes now dull and distant. He wouldn't even pick up the acoustic guitar his mother had lovingly brought from home. I tried everything in my professional toolkit. I called in rehabilitation specialists, consulted with psychologists, even brought in other patients who had found new lives after similar injuries. I shared stories of resilience, tales of people who learned to paint with their mouths, or write with their toes, or compose music with adaptive technology. Min-joon listened, or pretended to, but his heart remained closed. Each day felt like a step backward. His muscles began to atrophy, not just from the injury, but from his complete lack of will. The nurses reported he spent most of his time staring at the ceiling. We were losing him, not to his physical wounds, but to the crushing weight of his broken dreams. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach every time I saw his chart. I was a surgeon, trained to fix, to mend, to save. But how do you operate on a shattered dream? How do you stitch hope back into a heart? Then came the lowest point. It was a particularly grueling Tuesday. I had been in surgery for 12 hours straight, an emergency pediatric case that ended in heartbreak despite our best efforts. I walked out of the operating room, my body aching, my mind heavy. Just as I was about to head home, the night nurse caught me in the hallway, her face etched with concern. "Dr. Lee," she whispered, "Min-joon won't take his medication. He just keeps saying, 'What's the point?' His pulse is weak and he hasn't eaten anything all day." My chest tightened. I had pushed myself to the limit, felt the sting of failure with the previous patient, and now Min-joon was slipping away too. I felt a wave of profound helplessness wash over me. All my years of training, all my skill, felt utterly useless in the face of such profound despair. I wanted to scream, to pound my fists against the wall. What was I even doing here if I couldn't save them, truly save them from themselves? My exhaustion was a heavy cloak, my hope a flickering candle in a strong wind. I thought of my own small apartment, a quiet refuge in the bustling city, and the comforting silence that awaited me. But something, a stubborn flicker of something deeper than medical duty, pulled me back towards Min-joon's room. I couldn't leave him like this. Not tonight, I told the nurse I would stay. I sent my apologies home, knowing my family would understand. I changed out of my scrubs, put on a fresh hospital gown, and sat in the chair beside Min-joon's bed. The room was dark, lit only by the soft glow of a monitor. Min-joon lay perfectly still, his eyes closed. I didn't say anything for a long time. I just sat there, breathing with him, feeling the quiet pulse of the hospital around us. Then, very softly, I began to talk. not as his doctor, but as a person who had seen a lot of life, a lot of pain, and a lot of unexpected turns. I didn't talk about his injury or his recovery. I talked about the Seoul I knew, the bustling markets, the quiet temples nestled in the mountains, the way the Han River looked at dawn. I told him about my own journey, the moments of doubt and exhaustion I'd faced, how sometimes the path you think you're on suddenly disappears, and you have to find a new one, even if you don't want to. I shared a story about an elderly patient I once had, a painter who lost his sight, and for a long time refused to paint again. But then he found a new way, creating incredible sculptures that he could see with his hands. He didn't replace his old dream, he transformed it. I kept talking, gently, for hours, through the long, quiet hours of the night. I told him about how the best melodies often come from unexpected places, how a minor chord can lead to a breathtaking resolution. I talked about finding a new rhythm, a new harmony, even when the old one felt forever lost. I talked about my passion for astronomy as a boy, how I once dreamt of being an astrophysicist, only to find my true calling in the intricate universe of the human body. Then very quietly I asked him, Min-joon, before music, before the guitar, what else did you love? Was there anything else that brought you joy? A color you loved to see, a story you loved to tell, a dish you loved to cook? The silence stretched, long and agonizing, and I felt my own hope waver. Just as I was about to give up, a whisper so soft I almost missed it escaped his lips. Stories, he mumbled, his voice raspy. I always loved stories. I used to write them down, little tales, when I was a child. Fables with animals that spoke and heroes who found courage in unexpected places. My heart leaped. It was a tiny spark, but it was there. I leaned in. Tell me about them, Min-joon. Tell me about your heroes. And he did. Slowly, painstakingly, he began to speak, his voice gaining strength with each word. We talked until the first light of dawn painted the Seoul sky with hues of rose and gold. We talked about how stories could be told in many ways, with words, with art, with the very fabric of one's life. We talked about how he could still create, still inspire, still compose, even without his guitar. He just needed to find his new instrument. The next morning, Min-joon ate his breakfast. He started his physical therapy with a newfound determination, his eyes no longer blank, but thoughtful. I connected him with a writing group, with a mentor who taught creative writing to people with disabilities, and even with a voice acting coach, as he had expressed an interest in narrating his own stories. He began to write, first hesitantly, then with a powerful surge of creativity. His words were full of the music he once played, now translated into lyrical prose. He wrote fables just like he did as a child, but now they spoke of resilience, of finding light in darkness, of the beauty of transformation. He even started a blog, sharing his journey and his stories, inspiring countless others. My new normal was forever changed. That night with Min-joon taught me that my job wasn't just to heal bodies, but to help mend spirits, to nurture dreams, even when the original ones were broken. I started dedicating more time to truly listening to my patients, beyond their symptoms, beyond their charts. I encouraged my residents to see the whole person, to understand their passions and their fears, not just their ailments. I realized that sometimes the greatest medicine we can offer is simply our presence, our unwavering belief in another person's capacity for hope. Years later, I received an invitation. It was to a book launch. Min-joon, now a celebrated author and motivational speaker, was publishing his first collection of short stories. I walked into the bustling bookstore, and there he was, standing tall in his wheelchair, his eyes shining with a light I hadn't seen in him since before his accident. He saw me across the crowded room, and a wide, genuine smile spread across his face. He navigated the crowd towards me, extending a hand that was now strong and purposeful. "Dr. Lee," he said, his voice deep and resonant, "you didn't just save my life, you showed me how to live again. You helped me find my true symphony." He then gave me a signed copy of his book. The dedication read, "To Dr. Lee, who taught me that even when one song ends, another beautiful melody is waiting to be composed. Thank you for staying." As I read his words, a warmth spread through me, a feeling deeper than any surgical triumph. It was the quiet joy of seeing a human spirit reborn, and knowing that sometimes, all it takes is one act of unexpected kindness, one night of unwavering presence, to help someone find their way home to themselves. And in that moment, as I looked at Min-joon, I realized he had saved me too, reminding me that even doctors need to be reminded of the boundless power of hope.